Welcome one, welcome all to the greatest mixtape of them all. It is the NFC East Mixtape presented to you by SB Nation. You can listen to this show on any of the NFC East podcast networks here at SB Nation. That is Bleeding Green Nation for Philadelphia Eagles content, Blog of the Boys for the Dallas Cowboys, Big Blue View for those New York Football Giants, or Hogs Haven for the Washington Commanders. You can watch this show on the Bleeding Green Nation YouTube channel or the Blog of the Boys YouTube channel. And you can hear us in your hearts if you really close your eyes and listen hard enough. Us is he, Brandon Lee Gowton of Bleeding Green Nation. I am RJ Ochoa of Blog of the Boys. BLG, happy Thanksgiving week to you.
RJ, as one Mike Mitchell would say, many gobbles to you and many gobbles to the listeners. You have a nice Friends hat on for those people who are not watching the YouTube version of the show, which you should be, the Bleeding Green Nation YouTube channel or the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel. How you doing?
I'm doing well. On the subject of the YouTube channel, you and I haven't ironed this out, but I've gotten a lot of requests on the BTB side of things to do more live mixtapes, which is something that we stream on YouTube. So we'll kind of workshop this, but I think we should do a Christmas extravaganza, just, what with the fact that the Cowboys and Eagles are playing on Christmas Eve. So we can kind of figure that out. It'd be cool if we could do some sort of like bigger deal, you know what I mean, than we did last time. Last time was a big hit, but if we could...
What do you mean bigger deal?
I don't know. I mean, that's not my job here at SB Nation. My job is to cover the Cowboys and upset Eagles fans with my tweets. Michael Kist, if anybody wants to tweet at him at Michael Kist NFL, tell him what you want to see us do for Christmas. Like what you want to see from the mixtape. Kist is the boss. We can only do what he says and what he allows. So annoy Kist, pester him, but do so kindly, please.
I mean, he does listen, so sometimes at least. Maybe not every time, but he does listen sometimes. So
I saw Jeremy Reisman, our great friend who covers the Detroit Lions here at SB Nation, was trolling him on behalf of the Cowboys on Twitter. So shout out to Jeremy for doing that. Brandon, before we get into it, it is Thanksgiving week, so a lot of people are traveling while they're listening to this, whether that's on the road or they're catching a flight. We hope everybody is safe. Obviously, we've talked about like travel etiquette in the past, and you are famously not a Thanksgiving person as far as food is concerned. So that being said, what is your favorite part of this week? It's a different week for us because for me, the Cowboys are so baked into it. Obviously, you watch every year, but it's a different experience. Like, what's the best part of Thanksgiving week for you?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Thank you.
I would say, first of all, had a Friendsgiving event over the weekend. That was nice. But my favorite parts of the event were the non-traditional Thanksgiving foods that were there, including someone made a buffalo chicken dip. It was awesome. Someone brought tomato pie. Our good friend Holden, who listens to the podcast, and RJ, I brought this.
I live in Holden's Head rent free. I know him very well.
From South Philly. Like those little things made it so much more exciting and fun to me, and those were the best parts. So I like the non-traditional things. I don't really know that I'm going to have that. Probably just a small gathering with my mom and dad. Shout out the most loyal listeners.
They are very loyal listeners.
A single episode. So just gonna have a great time hanging out with them. Honestly, might end up playing some disc golf / froth at some point. Might try to get to do that. Looking forward to that potentially if it works out. Not sure. But yeah, just the simple things. RJ, what about you?
Well, this Thanksgiving is my son's first birthday. He was born the night before Thanksgiving last year, and that was a really chaotic day and event and, week. And even beyond that, he was born premature. So my wife and I obviously had to deal with that for a long time. But thankfully, he's a happy, healthy baby. And so we're really excited about that. I will say, I know you're not a Thanksgiving food person. I am very excited for Thanksgiving food because look, my wife did the hard work as far as like the birth was concerned, but she got Thanksgiving food and it was in the hospital, but still like she got turkey. Do you know what
it evens out.
Do you know what I ate for Thanksgiving last year? I've complained about this many times.
I do, because I listened to your other podcast, or at least I listened to the SB Nation NFL show.
There you go.
And you said you got Burger King. What do you get from Burger King? Do you remember?
I think I had a burger, obviously, but I really like the like chicken fries. You know what I'm talking about that they have? They're like they're like chicken tenders, but like in the shape of fries. And I thought in that moment, and like when you're just like running on fumes, you're like anything sounds good. They weren't. So I am very excited to make up for lost time. I missed out on the turkey, the stuffing, the pies. I missed out on all of it last year. So to celebrate my son's birthday while the Cowboys play, eating some great food, it's gonna be a good time.
Okay, sounds good. I do see, but to this point, because it speaks to my point about Thanksgiving, I'm not saying you should never have traditional Thanksgiving food. That's not my argument. It just gets tired to me that it's a default every single year. I think it's fun to change it up. And I think what you're saying here, you almost have this new appreciation for it this year because you took a year off last year, but not intended, obviously. But I think it's okay to change it up, and I think it's okay to invite non-traditional Thanksgiving foods into the mix to kind of to freshen it up a little bit. I think it just kind of gets boring.
I'm injecting a new one. I talked about this last week, and a huge thank you to everybody who sent me mac and cheese recipes. So I want that to be like my thing, like Dad's mac and cheese. So I'm trying one out. It's probably going to take some experimentation. So that is a new thing. I've never really had mac and cheese on Thanksgiving. The last thing on this before we get to the Philadelphia Eagles, of course, Dave Damashek, formerly of the Dave Damashek football program, now does all sorts of podcasts. Damashek is one of the people who inspired me to get into NFL stuff. He has a take that stuffing should be consumed like beyond Thanksgiving. Like to your point, okay, fine, like maybe mix it up, get some new foods in there, but there are certain foods that only get eaten at certain times.
Also, my point.
Yeah, like
this is
dressing,
also my point about
that's what I'm saying. But like dressing / stuffing, whatever you want to call it. Jason Markham on the SB Nation NFL show called it stuffing. You can eat that all the time. Like you don't have to isolate it to just this holiday.
That's what like drives me crazy. It's like, wow, this food is so good, but we only have it once a year. Like,
Right.
I don't know, maybe the food isn't that good, and that's why you only have it once a year. I guess you could counter by saying like, oh, the Super Bowl is only played once a year. You don't have the special event every year. But come on, like, is stuffing really a special event food or turkey? Turkey's just boring to me, man. It's not that. There's no way it's like an S tier. Thanksgiving food is there's no way it's S tier. There's no way. There's no way this can be S tier food. It can be someone's maybe like B plus, A minus tier, but no way at the top. It's not elite. No, it's not. How?
I mean, I will admit that like the turkey isn't the like driving force. Like that's not what makes the meal great. But like if it is the sun that everything is orbiting around, it does a good enough job at that particular thing. It's not my favorite planet though. It's kind of like the analogy I'm making.
What's your favorite planet?
Neptune. What's yours?
Probably Earth. That's what stats would say. Sorry.
You can listen to Brandon Stats and I preview all of Week 12's action, by the way, later this week on the SB Nation NFL show. Just a programming note for everybody as we get ready for the NFC East. We are recording that on Wednesday. So we're recording that ahead of Thanksgiving. We will not touch on the 3 Thanksgiving Day games, but we will get into everything else, obviously, including our locks of the week, which I know Brandon is already upset about the team that I have chosen. Brandon, are you ready to begin?
I'm going to say Saturn because I like the rings. The rings are cool.
It's only one ring, isn't it?
Well, whatever. The ring. No, I think there's multiple rings.
I'm pretty certain it's only one ring.
But I think like it's one like ring that looks big, but I think there's like rings within the rings.
I mean, I don't know the chemical, like, you know what I'm saying? Like if it's like multiple thin rings of gas or something, but like it is effectively classified as one ring. Like it is understood that Saturn has a single ring, I think is the general kind of understanding that people have. The Philadelphia Eagles eked out a win against
Saturn's rings are thought to be pieces of comets, asteroids, or shattered moons. Rings.
I really thought you
from NASA.com.
I promise I'm not trying to like segue hard, but I really thought you said Saturday's rings.
No, sorry. I know you're trying to segue, but NASA is saying Saturn has rings, plural.
Again, I thought you said Saturday's rings. He does have a ring, having won it with the Indianapolis Colts in Super Bowl 41. Had he beaten the Philadelphia Eagles, Colts fans and all their fraudulence might have given him another one for starting off 2-0 as an interim head coach. It really looked like the Colts were going to win this game. Final score, of course, everybody knows 17-16. I have my thoughts. You actually, for everyone who doesn't listen to the NFL show, BLG was a super coward last week and did not allow me to give my thoughts on this game. So I will give them afterwards. But what are your thoughts a few days after the Eagles flirted with disaster?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it wasn't a outcome that was.
Actually, to set this up, when we were talking about this game, or I wasn't, but Stats said that had the Eagles lost this game, that he would start to have serious questions, and you said you should. You were very emphatic, and so I trust in your legitimate wisdom that I know you have. You're not somebody's like, well, the win is a win, so like we don't have to question this whatsoever. Like
no,
they won, but like there are definitely a lot of questions to start asking about this Eagles team.
Well, as I have said once or twice before, more than one thing can be true, and I think you do take the win because you're 9-1. The Eagles have never not gone to a title game in their history. The previous 5 times they've started out 9-1, so that's just some perspective. It's like
how many of those are Super Bowl era? I'm really asking.
Yeah, I think it's 3. I think 3, 2 NFL championships, and I think 3 Super Bowls. Yeah, because it was
because
Okay, wait,
it was like 43 and then the
they've only been
60
to 2 Super
championship
Bowls.
team.
No, they've been to So, yeah, it was
They've been to 3
the,
Super Bowls.
the Raiders
don't
one they
even know.
lost, the Patriots won, and then the one they won. So, yeah, 3 Super Bowls, 2 championships. Anyway, don't interrupt me, RJ. It's not like I interrupted you about, like, Saturn's rings or anything. So, definitely concerning. I'm not like the sky is falling though. So last week after the loss to Washington,
The wash to
rather,
Washington.
the wash to
Nice.
Washington. I'm not good at talking. It's fine. My concern level I said was at like a 2 out of 10. If 10 is the sky is falling, season's over, panic. I'm up to like a 4 now. I'm not ready to say like this is still, and here's why. Because the defense did play well. You have to give them credit after the first drive, which they did not, and it was very concerning after coming off last games. That same thing. We're gonna go to the same thing. Indy's gonna go on all these long drives. The Eagles can't get off the field. That didn't happen. The run defense that everyone was freaking out about, that totally tightened up. I'm sure adding Ndamukong Suh and Linval Joseph certainly helped with that. So that's a positive. The negative is the offense without Dallas Goedert. That's looking like it might be a real issue. Now, I will say, my biggest issue with the Eagles in this game and why I kind of feel not totally panicked moving forward, I think this is like by far and away the worst coaching performance that we saw from Nick Sirianni / Shane Steichen. They're like weird personnel decisions, weird play calls. Like there was a drive, their final drive of the second quarter, I believe, where they go 3 and out on 3 straight run plays where the Colts have a good run defense and AJ Brown wasn't even on the field. Like, what are we doing? Like, why your best players is not on the field because you want to run 13 personnel?
Because he would wind up fumbling. They knew that. They didn't trust him.
You're running 13 personnel with 3 backup tight ends. How does that mean? You want to get more backup tight ends on the field? Like that's so they kind of outsmarted themselves now to their credit. They only ran, I think, 11 personnel the whole second half. So they kind of adjusted. They realized that was dumb. That wasn't working. And then sure enough, they scored 2 touchdowns in the second half. So I think they did adjust, and I think they did realize they're being dumb. I will be concerned if we continue to see this poor coaching moving forward. But I think for most of the year, we have not seen anything like that. I just thought it was very out of character. So they survived, and you're hoping they're going to be a lot better moving forward in that department. So that's why I'm not ready to panic entirely.
So few things I'm just going to blitz through because we could sit here for the entire hour for any of these teams, I think, at this point, because it is, I don't know if you've ever heard anyone use this, the NFC Beast, because it's the NFC East, but
we made that up.
But they're playing so well that they're like a beast. And so if it's like a play on the word East. And so and when they don't play well, I plan on calling it the NFC least, just so we're all clear.
We invented that too.
We did. So I, first of all, think that your scale is broken. To say like 10 is the sky is falling, the season is over. Had the Eagles lost this game, like the season is not over if you're 8-2. You know what I'm saying? So like, I think 10 on your scale moving forward should be like, I don't think this team can win the Super Bowl. You know, there's a difference between that and the season is over. Maybe you define that as the season being over, but that's just my point on that.
What's the energy? It's not literally like the season is over. It's like the energy is like we have no shot. So
sure.
Basically the same thing you're saying.
I don't give the Eagles, and I'm really trying to be as objective as possible here. I don't give them any credit for like, oh, the defense showed up. The Colts have the 32nd ranked offense by DVOA. Like, like, oh, cool. You stymied this offense. Like,
okay, that's unfair though when it comes to the run thing specifically.
Well, okay,
they got so much crap for that.
But everybody gets crap. We talked about that last week.
No. The Eagles got so much crap specifically for not being able to stop the run.
But again, that's happening to everybody, like we talked about last week, save for, you brought up San Francisco and Tampa Bay, and those were good examples. But like the Cowboys got a lot of crap. Again, a week ago was like the Cowboys can't stop the run. Look what Aaron Jones did to them. The Eagles can't stop the run. That has been, Mina Kimes talked about that on her podcast last week. Nobody can really stop the run, generally speaking. So that isn't like a problem that is specific to the Eagles or the Cowboys. That was something we mentioned.
That was a huge talking point for this upcoming stretch with Jonathan Taylor, and
but again, like
Aaron Jones, and Saquon Barkley,
it's not like
and Derrick Henry.
But like people are doing this like this, and like I'm certainly guilty of like tweeting things that will like go off. But like people are doing this like, oh, these are the running backs the Eagles are going to have to play. These are the running backs the Cowboys are going to have to play, and like those lists are popping off. It's disingenuous to say like, well, they held Jonathan Taylor. Like Jonathan Taylor has not been 2021 Jonathan Taylor this year. I understand they had a great performance. Okay, cool. Like, and that's the thing. We sat here and destroyed, rightfully so, Josh McDaniels for losing to this team. And nobody is coming for Nick Sirianni with an ounce of that energy, albeit the Eagles did win, and that's obviously what matters the most. But so, like, I don't put fine. Like, I'm not saying give them 0% stock, but I don't give them anywhere near 100% for like stopping the mighty run. Respect. They did adjust very well after the first drive. I'll give you that. What did he have? Like 7 attempts, like 7 carries, like on the first possession. Like, it was nuts. And I don't know, why Indianapolis, like they really do feel like this team that's like, we're just going to live and die with the run. I really thought he was going to touch the ball like 50 times, but that obviously didn't wind up happening. But generally, again, I don't give them credit because Matt Ryan sucks. Like, he is so bad. I don't know who the worst quarterback in the NFL is right now, or starting quarterback. He's in the mix. Like, and that, like, if this had been
Zach Wilson,
sure. If this had been Jared Goff, I think the Eagles lose that game. If this had been Taylor Heineke, I think the Eagles lose that game. If this had been, Derek Carr, I think the Eagles lose that game. Like, they certainly benefited from things being put into Matt Ryan's hands late in the game. I'll give them credit for that last possession and obviously getting the big time stop. And I have no idea what the Colts did defensively to just like part the Red Sea and let Jalen Hurts walk in. But I definitely don't give them credit for like holding the mighty Indianapolis Colts offense. And I think that jives with the way I've approached the Colts all season long. The Dallas Goedert thing, yeah, I think that's real. And I think that's what's showing up. Like, I don't like it's hard to call this luck, but the injury, the Eagles had injury benefit, right? They hadn't had to deal with injuries in the ways that a lot of other teams had. And that's just the way seasons go sometimes. But yeah, now you're missing a very important pass catcher and some of the other luck. Again, luck is such a bad word, but like the AJ Brown fumble, like these weird things starting to happen that weren't happening.
I think maybe a better
term.
That's
a better word. Like things are regressing to the mean in whatever way you want to qualify it a little bit here. I do think it's fair to doubt this team. Like there was a point in time a month ago where this team seemed infallible, and it isn't just a result of this Colts performance. It isn't just a result of the last, what is now 8 days losing to Washington. This team struggled against Houston. I mean, this is a team that is starting to look like a weaker version of themselves. Not to say they are weak, but weaker relative to who they were a month and a half ago.
What team can't you doubt in the NFL right now? What team is infallible?
No, but I mean, none. To be clear,
that's the league this year, especially.
No, but that's not the conversation that Eagles fans were having. It was like, oh, this team is perfect. This team is a monster. This team is indestructible. This team has very clear and obvious flaws. And that's of strawman.
No one is saying this team is flawless. No one is making that argument right now. Everyone wants to. Who's the top team in your NFL power rankings right now?
The Kansas City Chiefs. They look the most.
Who did they lose to?
Okay, that is silly to do that.
Which team did they lose to? Which team did they lose to?
They did not lose to the Colts this week. They lost to the Colts early on, and that was embarrassing, and we killed them for it.
And how many points did they score in that game?
That is like, you're so much smarter than this to act like that's the same thing. Like, you really are. And so like there's so much coping happening with the Eagles. Well, the Chiefs lost.
Well, the Chiefs are amazing, but
they are amazing.
Actually beat the Colts, and the Eagles don't get any credit.
It's almost like things change. Data changes. We have learned more. Like, things have changed a lot since then. And so that doesn't mean that the Chiefs' loss wasn't embarrassing, because it was. It was incredibly embarrassing. But they have shown a lot since then to prove how mighty they are. The Eagles have shown nothing over the last month. When was the last time the Eagles looked mighty? And like,
they blew out the Steelers.
I don't think. When was that? That was what?
A couple weeks ago.
That wasn't 2 weeks ago. When was that game? Eagles. That was October 30th. So I mean, we're almost
less than a month.
So in November.
All right, let's see how they do this week, and then we can say it's been a month.
So to your point, they
blew them out. It was 35-13.
I know. To your let's use that as the like point of demarcation. All right, so they looked like a very legitimate and sound team, and I'm not saying, like, again, this isn't like live in one extreme or the other. I'm not saying they're trash. But since then, since the Phillies made the World Series, the Eagles have looked like a shell of that team. And they struggled. They struggled against the Houston Texans. They lost to the Washington Commanders.
By what? Like double digits?
They
won by 12 points. They struggled against.
Okay, well, then they lost by double digits to the Commanders, if you want to use that same logic. I mean, you can't just.
No, that's not true. I mean, yes, factually, you're right.
Well, you're living in a factual sense. They did struggle against the Texans.
Not score garbage time, like lateral touchdown.
But they did. They struggled. They almost lost that game. They put it away late and won by 12 points. And then over a week later, they lost by 11 points. Those are all factual statements. And then they barely beat this trash Indianapolis Colts team. I hinted at this. My lock of the week is the Green Bay Packers, 7-point dogs against this Eagles team. And I don't believe in the Packers, but I believe that Aaron Rodgers, as bad as he is better than Matt Ryan. And I certainly think that the Eagles, I I don't know how many games this team's going to lose, but they're going to lose a few games before this regular season's over.
A few, so 3. You're thinking at least 3 more losses?
Is that how you define a few? That's just a
Yeah.
separate question. Is that a real thing?
If you're saying 2, you would say a couple.
They're at least going to lose a couple because they're losing to the Cowboys,
Okay.
and they're going to at least lose another. So they're at least losing a couple.
I think 3 is a lot. So back during 2017, the Eagles had a stretch here where they did not play well. They got down big to the Giants, needed a huge comeback win. That was December 17th. They had lost to the Seahawks 2 weeks prior to that. They very much needed a big comeback against the Raiders on Monday Night Football on Christmas Eve. And then they obviously didn't look good when they played their starters early on against the Cowboys. Game wasn't meaningful, but they played some of the starters early on. They didn't look good at all. So that was not really encouraging.
So, you're talking about the week 17 game, right?
Yeah.
That was they lot was like 6-0 was the final score.
Yeah. But they did start like a decent amount of not everyone, but they played like some of the starting offense to, like, I think, try to get them out of a funk because they had been in a funk. And that did not work for them. Like, I think the goal was to play him for a drive. Hopefully they get a touchdown, take him out, almost like a preseason thing. Did not go that way. I think Foles,
if I remember, it was like blistering cold too. Like it was
really
not,
cold.
Not your normal game, but whatever. They won the Super Bowl.
People were like freaking out though. It was like, I don't know. I think you might need to like call Tony Romo. Like you might need to sign Colin Kaepernick. Foles doesn't look good. You might need to bench him for Sudfeld. Like there was panic.
I think this is coping. Like, this just like in 17. Like
well,
this,
I'm not saying there's no reason to not be. I'm not saying there's reason to not be concerned at all. I'm just saying, a course of a very long season, you're gonna have peaks and valleys.
That was not what I was told. I was told this team was going to handle everybody. I was told this team was going to lock this up. It's not a straw man. If
they're 9-1.
They are 9-1, but they look infallible. They look fallible.
Like this is the worst 9-1 team in NFL history.
They look closer to last year's Cardinals than they do to like the 85 Bears. Like that's not to say that's who they are, but they look like they've lost. They look like the peak is behind them. That's what they look like right now. What reason is there to believe they're going to pull themselves out of this and start stabilizing? Because like we think. What objective reason is there? They looked bad. They almost lost this game to the Colts. The Colts with an interim head coach. They almost lost a game to a coach who was a TV analyst 2 weeks ago.
What reason is there to think the team that was 9-1 and has shown a much larger sample size of playing well this season might play well again? What reason is there?
They played poorly for 3 weeks in a row. What reason is there to say that's not who they are now?
What's the bigger sample?
But what's the recent sample? Why is it going to change? I'm actually asking what is supposed to change over that's supposed to stop what has been happening over the last 3 weeks?
Things change over the course of a season. You've said that when they were doing well, like things could change. And I said I agree. They're 9-1. Again, have never not been to a title game after starting 9-1.
That has nothing to do with this. That has nothing to do with
because it puts it in perspective. This is not an easy thing to do, and it speaks to the accomplishment of what they've already done so far.
But
also,
that means nothing. The Cardinals were 7-0 last year. Did they get to the title game? No, they didn't even win a playoff game.
And Shane Steichen, I think it's not similar at all. I think Nick Sirianni has done a much better job than Cliff Kingsbury was doing last year. We said that
until they weren't.
At the time, we didn't believe in Cliff. No one believed in Cliff.
I'm not saying that I don't believe. I think Nick Sirianni. I think a lot of things.
Also, do you think like Jalen Hurts is as big of a loser as Kyler Murray because he's transparently been for a long time?
But the point is the example. The point is that Cardinals team was winning games and had some weird wins that were starting to feel like they were barely kind of hanging on, and then it all fell apart for them. And I'm not.
Well, they also lost DeAndre Hopkins. Losing like your best offensive
Dallas
player.
Goedert's out now for a little bit. We'll see when he comes back.
Okay, but there's a big difference between that and still having AJ Brown and Devontae Smith on the team. Like
all I'm saying
who else
is
do the Cardinals have after losing DeAndre Hopkins, AJ Green?
This is slipping away from the Eagles, and a lot of Eagles fans thought it was theirs. There were a lot of Eagles fans who hoisted banners for getting to 8-0.
No, they didn't.
And there's all these Eagles fans who are saying, "Oh man, the number 1 seed is ours," and that's why we talked about this. I really think it was not that this like impacted things, like rooting is whatever. I really think it would have been in the Eagles' best interest for the Cowboys to lose last week as opposed to the Vikings.
So distraught to have a 2-game lead for the number 1 seed. With
that 2-game lead means nothing. There are 7 games left. There are 7 games left, and the Cowboys
play the Eagles. It's a great spot to be in. This means nothing.
What? So okay, I just want some simple answers, like for the purposes of saving time, because we have.
I'm the one who's coping, says the person who is multiple games back of the 1 seed.
Do you think it's possible
they're going to get it?
Do you think it's possible that the Cowboys beat the Eagles?
Do I think it's possible? Of course. Do you think it's possible the Eagles beat the Cowboys?
Yes, but but like right now, the Cowboys look like the better team. Right now.
Oh my gosh.
Do they not?
This is such a hollow. I will take the 9-1
Eagles fans are like, we beat
over the
Colts.
7-3
we held
Cowboys
this
that the
offense.
Eagles
Got to give
beat.
the defense credit for winning 17-16. Meanwhile, the
So
Cowboys
ridiculous.
blasted the Vikings. If the
So
Eagles
ridiculous.
lose a non-Cowboys game and then lose to the Cowboys, that division lead is gone. Like that,
Okay,
they lose
great.
control.
Do it.
But I'm saying that's why, like, I think Eagles fans are so short-sighted. I think Eagles fans are trying to hold on and say, no, we have the 1 seed now, and now the Vikings have lost, so we have a little bit of a larger lead. The Cowboys are the team that's coming. The Cowboys are the team that is the bigger threat to the Eagles.
I thought it was the 49ers. The 49ers beat the Cardinals. Now everyone's saying the 49ers are the team to beat in the NFC.
That's the team I'm most scared of. I'm not scared of the Eagles. I'm definitely scared of the 49ers.
Well, I would say the same thing, probably.
Okay, but again, my point is the Cowboys are a bigger threat to the Eagles and what they want to accomplish than the Vikings, and that's why I think it's short-sighted to say that the Vikings' loss was better. But Eagles starting to slip away. Nick Sirianni trying to convince everybody that everything's cool. Blaming Colts fans for the firing of Frank Reich, even though they had absolutely nothing to do with it.
That's not when did he do that?
Why did he yell at them? Like, why did he
didn't yell at them? I think he's yelling at Eagles fans.
Well, then that makes even less sense. Like, how is that, like, proving a point?
I don't know. It's weird because he's a strange guy, but I don't think he was yelling at Colts fans.
You know what broke Nick Sirianni? You want to know what? I know the moment that all this fell apart into this weird timeline that we live in. When you went for the fist bump. What was the process? What was that?
I beat him in rock paper scissors.
That's what it was, right? He said he was playing rock paper scissors, and you tried to do it. Was that the story?
Yeah, I went in for like a gorilla. Not like the animal, but like GUE,
right?
Yeah. Like gorilla rock paper scissors game, and he lost to me because he threw out the rock when I threw out the paper. So I beat him. Last thing I'll say is that, and I guess we'll get into this looking ahead, but the Eagles' next 2 games are at home. So we'll see if they can right the ship at home, where they have lost 1 game this year and have lost 1 game total.
The Philadelphia Eagles fell to number 4 in overall team DVOA this week. They were number 2 last week. The team who was number 4 last week is number 2 this week, and that is the Dallas Cowboys. DVOA considers the Dallas Cowboys to be a better team than the Philadelphia Eagles here in Week 12. The Dallas Cowboys, whose quarterback Dak Prescott is 7-3 all time against the Eagles, 9-2. Against
Which
the Giants.
Record outside of the East.
Why does that? You're over here talking about last time the Eagles were 9-1. They went.
I don't know, because maybe when he plays the teams who aren't terrible, he's bad.
It's helpful that it's predictive. It's context. Dak Prescott owns this division. He is 7-3 against the Eagles, 9-2 against the Giants, 9-1 against the Commanders. After Thursday's game, against the Giants, 4 of the Cowboys' final 6 games are against the AFC South. I think we both agree by far the worst division in the NFL. And the road games, 1 is in Jacksonville in December, so not exactly
come through.
Not exactly a cold. The only real cold game of potential consequence Dallas is playing is week 17 in Tennessee. That's still hard to get used to. But so Dallas coming off that just. I don't know how much of this you saw or Eagles fans saw. I'm sure it's annoying, which makes me happy. Biggest margin of victory in a road win in Dallas Cowboys franchise history. Obviously, 37 points, winning 40-3. The fact that it came against an 8-1 team was a tiny little conflict for me, being a big believer in the Vikings.
But huge believer in the Vikings.
Yeah, and they're
your Super Bowl pick. The team
you
think is going to make the Super Bowl, and
they're 8-2. I feel
they're going to win the Super Bowl.
I feel very justified in my pick about the Vikings. I don't know. I will listen to the NFC North.
They have a negative point differential. They're such frauds, dude. Come on.
Some of the things I will say
the Vikings are not like.
We need to talk about the Cowboys, but I will say the Vikings have gotten to 8-2, not exactly in the way that I thought. Like, I thought Justin Jefferson would have like 200 yards every week, like and be. I thought he would be what Tyreek Hill is. Like, I thought he would be the Tyreek Hill to what to Tua. I thought it would be that kind of season. So they have been successful, not exactly in the way I envisioned, but this isn't about them. This was just absolute, pure, total domination. This was maybe the most dominating win they have ever had in the Dak Prescott era. Certainly in the Mike McCarthy era. I have never seen them just handle a team like they did. And for it to be, I know now all of a sudden the Vikings are frauds, but a week ago was, well, the Eagles are the only team who beat the Vikings. The Cowboys had their way with them, and that's a very impressive thing.
Yeah, just like the Eagles did earlier this season.
The Eagles, who are 2 spots below the Cowboys in DVOA right now.
Okay, how's the standings looking? How's the NFC playoff picture looking?
That's right now. But Christmas Eve, it's all changing.
Oh, we'll see. So I think the Cowboys defense obviously really good in this game. Kept the Vikings to 3 points. Hot take. Very egregious.
They started off. I know you were busy, but they started off very strong. The game went to 3rd down right away. Micah Parsons strip sack. I mean, it really felt like over at that point.
I mean, Dak had 3 incompletions the whole game. That's pretty good.
And you can argue that literally none of them were his fault. Like they were drops and just they weren't bad throws by any means. It was his most perfect game in a very long time.
Yeah, he needed a big game, his best game in a while. Pollard looked unstoppable pretty much. I felt on the ground. Pass rush got after Kirk Cousins, who sucks, as I've said many times. Kirk barely getting over 100 yards, pathetic. And yeah, just dominant win. A much needed response by the Cowboys after blowing that Packers game very embarrassingly after being up 28-14. It's exactly what they needed to do. It's if you want me to say something bad about the Eagles, they should have had more of a performance like this against the Colts. They should have went out against Indy, and they don't have to win 40-3, but you win by double digits.
No, but go kick someone's ass. Like that's what
at least
you
cover
want
the
to see.
Spread. Yeah, go out and at least cover the spread.
Well, and there was all this oh man, how are the Cowboys favorites? And this is where people do live in little cherry pick things. It's like, well, the Vikings beat the Bills, and look, the Vikings won that game. The Cowboys lost to the Packers. Those things are factually true. But you said it. Dallas had a 14-point lead in the fourth quarter. They blew it. Like, criticize them for that. That's on them. And similarly, the Vikings trailed the Bills by 17. I mean, this was
needed a 4th and 18 conversion of them.
Right,
that's and then a fumble for a lot of weird stuff.
No, and so but again, people live in the well, they just beat the Bills, but still, the only thing I disagree with what you said is that Tony Pollard looked dominant on the ground. Not that that's not true, but his real damage came through the air. His
Sorry,
2 touchdowns.
I didn't mean just the ground.
Right.
I meant as a whole.
Right. I'm just making sure we got all our boxes checked. Zeke Elliott did have the 2 touchdowns on the ground. By the way, as I said that, Australia just scored to take the lead 1-0 against France in the World Cup.
Oi.
Wow. I wonder if we have any Australian listeners. We get a lot of.
If you do,
yeah.
Listen.
I don't know what I've never seen action from on this. We see a lot of European stuff. But anyway,
I think Germany is a big one. Yeah.
Yeah, we see Germany and English fans and stuff, and a lot of Mexican fans. And
Ochoa,
Canadian
the goalie for.
Dude,
Mexico.
I get a lot of questions if we're related. I wish.
Are you?
But, no. Anyway. So this was a demolition, and I mentioned last week that I had Trayvon Diggs. We interviewed him at Blog of the Boys, and he said I was really kind of stunned. He was like, "This is the one." He said, "Kirk Cousins, Justin Jefferson. They really clamped Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson has never had, and I know that Darius Slade did too early in the season when Philly played him, but Justin Jefferson has never had a Justin Jefferson game against the Cowboys in 3 years, which is interesting. And I mean." They said all week, they said, this is a playoff game. We know. And again, I know you want to put your fingers in your ears and la. This game is massive in the NFC because Dallas now has the tiebreaker over Minnesota as well. And so if Dallas does surpass Philadelphia in the NFC East race and the Vikings drop a game, the 1 seed is the Cowboys to lose. And all those things are very possible. I mean, you're rolling your eyes. You think the Eagles are winning out? That's what it would take.
The energy you've given me all season long about the excitement about the Cowboys is the meme of the guy who's shaking a champagne bottle and celebrating, and you zoom out and he's 3rd on the podium. It's just this is the energy you're giving me.
No, this isn't.
The Eagles have been in the top
This is all very real. Again,
I'm not saying they can't get there, but I'm saying currently you're not there. There's a lot of premature celebrating.
It doesn't matter if you're not there today. Again, there is a very viable path. Do you just yes or no? Do you think the Eagles are winning out?
I don't think they're winning every single game. No.
So that would be no. You don't think they're winning out. So that would mean that if they lose a non-Cowboys game, they open the door for Dallas to take control of the NFC East. And with the tiebreaker over the Vikings, all Dallas needs is 1 Minnesota loss. And I don't think
the Cowboys are winning out.
I don't know, but I'm getting there.
Oh
so
my God, you wouldn't even say no. You think they're going to win out? Then
let me set my point up. So the Vikings remaining schedule. I think we both probably think. I think the Vikings probably beat the Patriots on Thursday night. I think you agree. And the Vikings schedule isn't super intimidating, but it does have some.
Beat the Patriots, or
what?
Vikings beat the Patriots. You said.
I'm saying, do you think the Vikings will beat the Patriots? They play Thursday night.
I don't know. I think that's a coin flip.
Quick win or loss. Patriots is a coin flip.
I guess I'll take the Vikings, but I don't know honestly. It's a coin flip game for me.
Coin flip, then the Jets. I think they probably beat the Jets. Obviously, you mentioned Zach Wilson. At Detroit, kind of a coin flip. I still trust the Vikings, but they played them tough.
Sure.
They played them tough in Minnesota early on. The Colts, who just went toe to toe with the mighty Philadelphia Eagles. The New York Giants, that's a pivotal game for NFC seeding as well. The Vikings' final 2 games of the season at Green Bay, at Chicago. And again, my point with regards to the Cowboys, I don't think they're going to win out because I don't think any of these teams are going to win out. But I think the Cowboys are going to win more games than either the Eagles or the Giants. And that's because of their final 6 games. 4 are against the AFC South. They have the by far the friendliest schedule down the stretch.
Okay, sure. That's a point of optimism in their favor. But
it's a point of reality.
The Eagles, who have a tiebreaker over them and can seal the tiebreaker.
Right.
The Eagles win that game.
Right.
So, beat all those teams. Doesn't matter if you lose to the Eagles.
So the path to Dallas securing the 1 seed was laid this past weekend. If they are going to wind up the 1 seed, they had to have this win over the Vikings, right?
Sure.
They had to. So the path was forged. We will obviously see what happens. I think both Cowboys and Eagles fans are rooting against the Vikings from here on out, or at least until they pick up, 1 or 2 more losses. So we'll see how that goes. No real injuries for the Cowboys. There was a little scare with Micah Parsons at the end when they were up 37 points or up 37-3. And they had him in and he almost got hurt and it was like, what the hell are you doing? Like, this is ridiculous and wild and crazy. But thankfully he was all right. My one question, and this was insignificant in the grand scheme of things, did you see the end of first half sequence in this game? Or were you busy? The kick and what went into it?
I mean, I thought, I did see it. I thought it was ridiculously awful officiating. It was really bad. It was terrible.
I have only ever seen this once before. And so in case anyone missed it, Dak Prescott threw a completion to CeeDee Lamb. It was a big completion to put them into field goal range. By the way, the only reason the Cowboys had that possession was because Kevin O'Connell allowed it. Like, Kevin O'Connell had some awful management at the end of the first half. But anyway, Dallas gets into range for a 60-yard field goal attempt. Brett Maher runs out and kicks it. And then all of a sudden, officials are like, wait a minute, we're going to go and review the catch. And I'd only ever seen this once before. And I don't know if you remember in 2007, Dallas played a Monday night game in Buffalo, and Tony Romo had 1 million turnovers.
Yeah, I remember that.
Well, late in that game, as Dallas was driving to win, Romo threw a completion to our boy T.O. And there's like very little time at this point in the game, and they run up and spike the ball to kick what would then be a game-winning field goal. And after they spiked the ball, officials went and reviewed it. They reviewed the completion. And that logic, I kind of understood. Their argument was, we didn't want to stop the clock with a review and give you a play when you may have otherwise not had that time. We wanted to make sure you got the spike off. That's stupid, because if a play happens, you can't go more than 1 play back in time to review it. It's a weird timeline that we're living in.
Yeah. I mean, it was terrible. I think it's a very fair gripe, even though it didn't, have an impact. Right, yeah. It's just from a process standpoint, that should not happen. It's terrible.
But Brett Maher drilled it anyway. That's one of the things I've been most wrong about, but I don't know anybody that was right about that in a way that made sense, like in a logical way. Like, it never made sense to believe in Brett Maher. The Cowboys didn't believe in him. He was there.
Process, good result.
Right. But all kudos to him for working on himself and getting his game to this level. Dak Prescott is playing at an elite level. The Cowboys defense is at an elite level. They got to get through Thursday. They get a week and a half to sit back and relax. And after Thursday, the Cowboys will watch the Eagles play 2 games and the Vikings as well. And you never know what's going to happen. So we move on. But before we do, we take a very quick break to hear a word from our sponsors. Brandon, welcome
and we're back.
Well, while we were gone, you went and took a shower. Do you feel
crazy? Because it's true. And
do you ever use the term bath? Like, I'm going to go take a bath?
No. I can't fit in the tub. I'm too big.
6'5". That's right.
6'9".
Wow. I don't think anybody
too tall, I should say, not too big. Like, I can fit in a tub like the width of a tub. I cannot fit in the lengthwise. That have to be a pretty big tub.
Right. I mean, is there a name for tubs like that? Like mattresses are
the
like
William Taft tub.
Well, there's like a California King mattress or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, there's names for.
I wish I had a California King, dude. That would be awesome.
You must really struggle when you go to like hotels. You're probably like, this is
no,
it's really. Like, because if you're 6'5", I mean, that's pretty tall. You know what I mean?
Well, I'm 6'9", and I usually, I feel like I went to Miami, to watch the Eagles Dolphins joint training camp practices. Probably the only team I'm scared of in the NFL, the Dolphins, who looked better than the Eagles in that practice.
You're not scared of the Chiefs? That would be
king size bet. I mean, it's kind of a bit like way to bit. Anyway, that mattress was a king size, so worked out. It's so good. But honestly, a California King is better because I don't know if you know this, Do you know the difference between a king and a California king?
Rihanna has a song called California King.
So
That's the
for
only reason why I know that.
RJ and the listeners, the king size compared to the California King's a little bit less wide, but it's longer. So you
So
sacrifice
you
some of the width for a little bit more
same
length.
same surface area, just
I don't know if it's the same, but I know in some way it's a little bit less wide, like not like very much, but like slightly. But there's slightly more length.
Okay. Well, maybe the New York Giants need a California King
Wow,
because
no
they are
football giants.
they rank 21st in overall team DVOA.
Hmm.
Do you know where they rank offensively?
Um, I don't know, like 25th,
If I told you it was their highest rank of the three, where would you guess? After that's your clue. Again, 21st overall.
22nd.
16th offensively, 27th defensively, and 20th from a special team standpoint. The 31-18 loss against the Detroit Lions certainly not helping. You
What
said
did I
this.
say? Yeah.
Well, two things you said that I want to give you props on. You said they would lose one of the two games between the Texans and the Lions, and you said a long time ago that they were kind of what Dan Campbell wanted his Lions to be. That's they had kind of gotten there faster. And so Dan Campbell was like, "Give me that back," you're me type thing. It was like Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, No Way Home. And so this was, look, multiple things can be true. I do think the Giants have benefited from, I wouldn't even call it luck, like or variance. Like, again, this weird coincidence of like being below league average on first and second down defensively, and then morphing into like the best defense to ever live on third down. Like that had to give more than other things have to give that will wind up giving, like we're seeing from the Eagles or, other teams like the Ravens, struggles on offense, whatever. It finally kind of gave out, and to give out against the Lions was really, it's really embarrassing.
Also, I mean, they just don't have.
Oh, sorry. Last thing. Kudos. Brandon was the only person in our SB Nation experts pick to pick the Detroit Lions. And in fact, the New York Giants team website shared our picks on their website, and Brandon was not. They shouted out all of us by name, the people who took the Giants.
I forgot about this angle to it.
Yeah, so they literally wrote like RJ Ochoa, Pete Sweeney, everybody who took the Giants. So your name was the only one omitted, and you were right. So take your victory lap.
I mean, it just can't. It wasn't even necessarily about like totally believing in the Lions. It wasn't about that as much as what was my argument is that I just felt the Giants were due. Like they weren't quite as good as this record indicated, and not to say they're a bad team. I almost think though that the Giants kind of having this status all year is that team. It's kind of hard to believe their record is so good and they're due for losses. That's kind of like covered for the Vikings a little bit because the Giants have been that team, and I just felt like they were due, and certainly they were. I think part of it is that they just don't have the horses to get this done. I mean, what do they have at wide receiver right now, especially with Wan'Dale Robinson going down for the year? It's Sterling Shepard. I'm looking at their draft chart. Their depth chart on our lads. It's Sterling Shepard. It's Kenny Galladay. Darius Slayton's, I think, a decent player. Wait, no, this is from last year.
Yeah, I was going to say Sterling Shepard tore his ACL when the Cowboys beat them.
So it's Marcus Johnson, who was like used to be on like the Eagles practice squad. Darius Slayton, who again I think is a solid player, but if he's like your best receiver, that's not a good spot to be in. And David Sills, Kenny Galladay, like has what I think 4 catches this year. By contrast, GJ Chauncey Gardner-Johnson has 6 interceptions. He's more interceptions. That's
so hard. CJ
GJ.
That's
Chauncey
so
Gardner,
hard to say.
CJ Gardner-Johnson has more interceptions than Kenny Galladay has catches this entire year. Like, they don't have enough. And that's fine in terms of the bigger picture. Like this was never going to be a 1-year thing. They're not like behind schedule. I think they're slightly ahead of schedule. But I will say, RJ, are the Giants locks to make the playoffs?
So, I think so. As it stands, as far as the NFC East is concerned, the Philadelphia Eagles the 1 seed for now. The Cowboys the 5 seed is the top wildcard team. They surpassed the Cowboys and Giants have the same record, but Dallas obviously beat them, has the tiebreaker right now, and I think we both think are going to beat them on Thanksgiving. Although the Cowboys have lost 7 of their last 10 Thanksgiving Day games, so that sucks. But so the Giants are 7-3. We've talked about remaining schedule, but yes or no? We think they're both falling to 7-4 on Thursday.
I am going to take the Giants because I have to, because I already said this is my prophecy, and everything that's come to pass thus far. The Eagles won, the Lions won, the Vikings won, and now it's going to be about the Giants beating the Cowboys on Thanksgiving. But if they do not do that, then they're in a really bad spot.
Okay, let's call them 7-4 just for argument's sake. Washington the week after. They get a week and a half worth of rest. They get a little mini bye for what it's worth.
Hard to bet against the Commanders right now. They're playing legitimately well.
By the way, we'll get to them, but it would be the most, like people say this a lot, it'd be the most Eagles thing. It'd be the most Cowboys thing. It really would be the most like Washington thing to like lose to this Falcons team. You know, especially like Taylor Heineke's got the Jordans thing. Like that is the easiest color template, right? Like people are like, how's he going to get one in like Texans colors? Like the Falcons colors would make such incredible Jordans that he won't be able to have conceivably. But so let's say they fall to 7-4. You said it, like, let's say they split the Commanders games. That the Commanders will play back to back with the bye sandwich in between. Okay. I thought they would split with the Eagles. I'm definitely feeling a little bit less confident in that. So let's say if they lose that game, if we're saying that they're not splitting with the Eagles, then we're saying that they lose the next 3 games in a row, potentially, which would be 4 losses in a row, which would drop them to 7-6. And then outside, so they're about to play 4 divisional games in a row. At Dallas, Washington, Philly, at Washington.
So dumb.
And then, I know. And then when they get out of that, like waiting for them is the Minnesota Vikings. So
this is really unfair. Like, you know, like not just dumb from a like standpoint of entertainment, but like if you have a key injury to lose, like let's say you to put a player on IR, but like would only have to miss 4 games before this stretch, they'd have to miss literally all the 4 division games. That's so like you're getting screwed.
Pretend it, like it's hard to do with the Giants because like they have like season-ending injuries, but like pretend it was the Rams and Cooper Kupp.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Like this short-term injury, and like he'll be back after 4 weeks. Fine, that happens to a bunch of teams. It's not like this freak thing that you should like can't count on. It happens at like this awful time.
It's the same. I hate starting the season off with 2 division games in a row because you're not like who you are. You know what I mean? Like at that point in time, like you need some time to gel and like become yourself. And so I really think that's such an unfair, you know, disadvantage that some teams are put in some years. This is tough for the Vikings. And like, I'm sorry, the Giants. The Vikings part of it is just unfortunate timing, you know, that they wound up being very good. So say they win, even if they won 2 of these games, call them whatever 2 you want. That would put them at 9-6 through Christmas Eve. And their final 2 games, both on the 2023 side of things, are Indianapolis and at Philadelphia. So there's definitely a world where they end like 10-7. And it's possible, to your point, that that's not enough. I mean, I think we both think San Francisco finishes north of 10 wins. But like, who's the other threat then? Like
Washington, especially, you know, God forbid they sweep the Giants, like then that tiebreaker looms very large for that last wild card spot. So that could be huge.
So we think one of Dallas, Philly is a wild card. We think San Francisco. Do we? Let me rephrase. Dallas, Philly are both getting in. Do we think San Francisco and Seattle are both getting in?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so that would be 2 wild card spots. And then it would come down to Washington or New York. And so that's interesting.
Or the Falcons, but probably not.
Right. You mentioned point differential. I know that's like a big like sticking point for a lot of people with the Vikings right now. They do have a negative. It's barely negative. You know, it's like what is it?
But still, it's like crazy for a team that's 8-2.
I mean, I agree with you. Like, so they are -2 in point differential. The team right above them in point differential standings, if you want to call it that, the New York Giants at +1. So they're not.
I just say, I feel like that I think those teams have been more similar than we would think. I just think the Vikings have gotten more benefit of the doubt, kind of.
I did a video about this on our YouTube channel, so if anyone's watching here, they can go back and watch this. But my 2 favorite things to look at, like people are like, well, how can you have, like Brandon, how can you have this team over that one in your power rankings? They have more wins. It's like it's not always about wins and losses, but I think that the 2 like metrics I personally lean on the most are DVOA and point differential. Neither one of them is perfect, but they can tell you more about teams than your average statistic is my point. And in that vein, I would be remiss if I did not mention the Buffalo Bills lead the way in point differential at +107. The Dallas Cowboys, number 2 at +84. Philadelphia Eagles coming in third, +80.
Sure.
Okay. Last thing on the Giants from me, because they are playing on a short week, so we already have like an injury report. I mentioned Cowboys don't really have anything. Brian Dable ruled out Daniel Bellinger and Adoree Jackson on Thursday. You already mentioned Wan'Dale Robinson, so they are very, very beat up. It's just an unfortunate time for that to happen, like you said.
So I think it's interesting because if let's say, you know, and maybe they won't miss the playoffs, but if they do, like that's a really interesting narrative because I think it got to a point. Oh, the Giants they're ahead of schedule. They're doing so well. Brian Dable coached all this stuff. It almost felt like the rest of the year was house money because it's like, oh, they're probably going to make a wild card spot. and they're, again, had a schedule. They're going to go into this offseason. They're going to add pieces. The arrow is very much pointing up. If they blow it, if they miss the playoffs, I'm not saying it's like they can't improve in the offseason, but the discussion is going to be a lot different than it was. Like if they have this epic collapse at the end of the season, like, do you disagree with that?
Kind of. Sorry, I'm a little bit distracted. France just scored to equalize. You gave us an Australian noise. Can you give us a French one? Okay. I think that this happened. This is a very particular narrative cloak that is thrown on some teams. And I think what would be thrown over the Giants in the offseason would be, man, they were looking really good. They were ahead of schedule, like everything that you said. And then they just got hurt. Like everybody got hurt. Everybody got injured. Like they would, and that's a fair thing to give them. And I think people would say, Daniel Jones just wasn't enough. He's not a quarterback who can elevate them. Like, so, like they would still be deserving of praise. I know you're not saying otherwise.
No,
I do think it would deflate some Brian Daboll Coach of the Year hype. And I guess like if Nick Sirianni's Eagles falls apart and if he keeps, publicly doing what he's doing, he may hurt his own case. Who's the next coach? Maybe Kevin O'Connell if the Vikings win the NFC North, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? And they win it so sizably. Like he's not out of contention. He doesn't get much love, but he's definitely in the mix. Because some of it is like he's a first year guy. It's generally kind of like a rookie of the year for head coaches.
Yeah. Who is it right now? Would you say?
I mean, it's a rough week to say. Maybe Mike McDaniel if they win the AFC East. Like I could see Mike McDaniel.
Yeah, that's a great
and Kevin O'Connell as
literally who was taking them to win the East? No one. Everyone was taking not only Buffalo to win the division, but like win the Super Bowl like easily and have the MVP. Last thing I want to say on the Giants to that point, I'm not saying it's like the season's a failure all of a sudden. I'm just saying the tone shifts a lot from like, oh great, this is like kind of house money off season. We made the playoffs, we didn't win a game, that's fine. We're gonna stack up in the offseason. I just think it kind of changes things. It makes things a little bit uneasier, and it's like, do we keep Daniel Jones? What do we do with Saquon? Like it makes, I think, some of their tough decisions even tougher.
I think it pokes at old wounds. It's a cousin. It's a cousin of the Cowboys losing in Green Bay. You know what I mean? It's like we can't escape this kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
He won't win Coach of the Year because of like not the narrative, but like he's already done enough things. But like Kyle Shanahan, I think deserves it. He's been so good, especially dude, he's had to adjust to losing Trey Lance. Like that's a real thing. So I know
they should have never been playing him though.
I agree, but if we're talking like he's not like people like Bill Belichick will never win it again because right now they suck. But you get like there was the point where like he could never win it because like how can you outdo yourself? So Kyle Shanahan's kind of in that mix a little bit. But yeah, right now I think it's Mike McDaniel. But anyway, okay, let's move on. The Washington Commanders, like a good team, destroyed the Houston Texans, unlike somebody I know. 23-10, the final score. Did you really see the photo of the Jordans that Taylor Heineke purchased after this game?
What was the margin of victory in that game you just said?
Look, it's a bit.
What was the margin in the? What was the margin of victory?
It was a bit.
What was the margin of victory? I won't want to say it, but
no,
the Texans.
It was a bit.
Lost by 13 points, and the Eagles, and the Texans lost by 12 points to the Eagles. So you said this not as a bit on the SB Nation NFL show.
But the Commanders beat them more. Did the Commanders not beat them more handily than the Eagles
by one more point?
Did they not beat them more handily?
By one more point. Okay.
So yes, thank you for answering the question.
Did you see
the Jordans that he bought? That was my actual question.
For what?
For winning this game, because he does the like Jordans thing, whatever.
No.
They were like baby blue, which I thought
doesn't
was
make any sense. Unless is it the Oilers he's going after?
But that wouldn't be correct. You know what I'm saying?
I agree, but I'm saying that's the only thing I can think of.
I thought that was very strange when I saw the photo.
I mean, the Oilers had better colors, so I wouldn't blame him from that part of it. But
I wouldn't either. But again, that feels like that feels like violating the spirit.
Yeah, right. I agree. It's wrong.
Of what you're doing, and those are bad vibes. You know what I'm saying? Like going into a game where you have such incredible colors. These are literally the Jordan colors, like black, red, and white. You know what I'm saying? And so those are bad. I don't know, but not a real like aerial day for the Commanders in Houston. In fact, Heineke was only 15-27 for 191 yards. Curtis Samuel scored on the ground. I don't know if you know, Ron Rivera coached him in Carolina, so he knew how to use him in Washington.
Yeah, he's like Christian McCaffrey.
Right. Well, Antonio Gibson was supposed to be like Christian McCaffrey. 18 carries for 72 yards. Did have 3 catches for 31 yards as well. So actually kind of Christian McCaffrey light. I'm willing to back off just a little bit on Ron Rivera. Like this has been an impressive little run. And there's It's not to say he's amazing, but he is the best coach that this team has had. I do think that Jay Gruden got a bad, kind of shake at the end of
I
things.
totally agree. Yep.
But he has, I think, really proven, like, I think he should come back next year if you're a Washington fan, especially with all the chaos. Like, I think there was a point where it was fair to be like, look, everything sucks, but Rivera offers nothing. Like, let's just wipe the slate clean. That was my thought. So I'm willing to say that I'm willing to walk that back a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's interesting from an ownership standpoint, right? Because like, how's that going to factor in? Are they going to want their own coach? Does a sale even happen in time? There's a lot of variables
Does
on
a
that
sale
end.
even happen at all? Right.
Does the sale happen? A lot of weird stuff going on from that sense. I don't love the Ron Rivera influence on personnel part of the operation.
Sure.
That kind of concerns me. I mean, he certainly was a big reason, apparently, according to his own words, that they got Carson Wentz, which is a really bad deal. So that part makes me a little bit nervous, but I agree from a football coach standpoint, they're probably not going to do a lot better unless they can. I mean, it might be a situation where if they can get, let's say, Sean Payton, maybe they would have to like spring at that, but otherwise just bring, Ron back for sure.
The Commanders are now north of 500. They have won 2 in a row. They have won 5 of their last 6, with their one loss coming against the Minnesota Vikings, who did execute that late comeback against them. I know that part of your coping mechanism here is to be like, well, actually, they're a good team, so this Eagles loss really isn't that embarrassing. So I don't know when this train stops for them. They're not winning the NFC East. I think that the mountain is too steep for them to climb at this point, but they are certainly in playoff contention. And I think you're right. I think the team that is most in jeopardy falling to them is not the San Francisco 49ers. It's the New York Giants, particularly because they do still get to play them, not just once, but twice, let alone back-to-back games for them. With like, they literally get to play them, go on by, study up, get like, that is such an unfair advantage too.
Yeah,
Like,
speaking of unfair, so hey, Giants fans, we said we're giving some credit to your team. We're giving some leniency to your team. I think you're getting screwed in some ways. But
their point differential is -9. I don't know what it is. If you buy me some time, I can figure it out over the last few weeks, though. Over since the wins started. So go ahead and speak, please. That's not cool. Please speak.
Please speak. Please clap. Yeah. So the Commanders, the rest of the Giants, by the way, we kind of touched on this in terms of who they'll play, but literally have the toughest remaining strength of schedule in the league the rest of the season. And then the Washington Commanders are actually 5th in terms of toughest remaining strength of schedule. And, playing in the East impacts that for sure. But, just to kind of put it in perspective there. Meanwhile, where's San Francisco at? San Francisco only at 21st. They still get the Raiders, the Saints, and the Cardinals again, in addition to the Bucks, Commanders, Seahawks, and the mighty Dolphins. So yeah, I think San Francisco definitely in a better spot than them. Did you figure it out?
I did.
Okay.
So since week 6, that was when this winning streak began. Do you remember where this? Or now they've lost. So, but this general streak. Do you remember where this began? Because I had kind of forgotten.
Was it the Packers game?
It was not. It was before that. It was a week and a half before that on Thursday Night Football when they beat the Bears.
Well, Wentz. Yeah, Wentz was still. I was thinking. I'm sorry. I thought you meant like when the switch to Heineke was made.
No, but that win certainly is important, right?
That was an awful win, though. They did not. They like got like I think they got outgained by like double. Like they did not deserve to win that game. It was not like a sign of good things to come. It was a really bad win. It was a win, but it was a really.
They
bad
had 214 total offensive yards and defensively allowed 391.
Yeah, they did. They got outplayed.
They have not allowed that many since. Their highest since then was against the Indianapolis Colts when they allowed 324 total yards, but still won that game. Their point differential. So this is the Chicago game, the Packers game, the Colts game, the Vikings loss, the Eagles game, and the Texans game. That's 6 games total. They have a plus 29 point differential in that time. So pretty impressive when you consider what they've been able to do in the last month and a half.
And Chase Young was coming back. He is going to be activated. He'll be making his debut. It still seems like he's not 100%. So they had to activate him or else he would be shut down for the rest of the year. Based on everything the coaches have been saying in recent weeks, it has not been like super encouraging and positive. So I wonder, it sounds like, I think if I'm not mistaken, I saw Hogtaven wrote about how Ron Rivera said he's actually going to be on a snap count to start. So we'll see how that goes. And I kind of wonder, in accordance with that, like how much of Chase Young will he truly be? So that's something to monitor.
I do think the Chase Young thing, not to be negative, but is such an example of like, don't listen to teams in the offseason or
Yeah.
whatever, or training camp, because it was like, oh, he's only
He's
going on,
ahead of schedule.
he's going on pup. He's going to be fine. You know what I mean? Like, it's whatever. But so their remaining schedule, they have Atlanta this week. That is their only game. Well, it's one of two games against opponents below 500 right now. Atlanta at New York, the bye. New York again at San Francisco, Cleveland on New Year's Day, but that is the Deshaun Watson
Right.
round. So we don't know exactly what that's a true wild card sort of thing. And then the Cowboys to wrap it up. And that Cowboys game, like we talked about, these last two games, Philly is hosting the Giants, right? In week 18?
Yeah.
So Giants at Philly, Cowboys in Washington could potentially swing things a lot of different ways. It will be very interesting how the timing happens. I'll obviously probably happen at the same time if the impact will or if the results will impact one another. But you could have Washington and New York needing that game for a wild card spot, and you could have Dallas or Philadelphia needing that game for, say, the 1 seed, right? Like if things break a certain way. So a lot of action to potentially be determined as the NFC East wraps up. Are we ready to, by the way, oh no, I already made that point. But Washington, from a DVOA perspective, 18th overall. They are 12th defensively. So
yeah,
climbing up a little bit. Climbing up. Good for them. Man, I had not realized just how bad the Eagles were special teams wise. Goodness gracious.
Oh yeah, that's been a consistent.
I mean, well, I knew that, but like,
like
seeing them 24 is like a whoa sort of thing. But anyway, okay, let's pick these games. We will go in chronological order for this because that just makes sense. Our friends, oh my gosh, I hadn't seen this yet today. Well, today's Tuesday for us. The Cowboys opened as 8-point favorites. Actually, they originally, before Sunday's Vikings game, opened as 7-point favorites. After that, they opened as 8-point favorites. That climbed to 8.5, went back down to 8, climbed up to 9. They are, as of Tuesday at 1:39 p.m. Central Standard Time, 9.5-point favorites against the Giants on Thanksgiving Day.
I think the Giants need to cover if this is like a different Giants team. If there's something real, it's like the Giants are different, Brian Daboll has them in the right direction, then they need to make this a competitive game. Even if they are banged up and everything, this cannot be a blowout, embarrassing, same old Giants loss. That would be very, I think, telling and deflating for them. So I'm going to say they win because I've already basically committed to this, and I don't feel good about it with all those injuries. But I do think if you look at last year, when the Cowboys had all of these big wins, because they had some last year that were really big, what happened the week after each time? They kind of had disappointing losses each time. So there could be something too. They're smelling themselves a little bit too much. People are underestimating the Giants a little bit much after losing to the Lions. There could be some kind of overreacting on both sides. I will take the Giants outright.
I will take the Cowboys. I will lay the points. They just destroyed the Minnesota Vikings. I trust them. They already beat this Giants team. They did it without Dak Prescott. They did it on the road. And plus the Cowboys are wearing their throwback uniforms this week. So lots of good vibes go in their direction. Eagles wearing their black helmets, right?
I was going to say, I want to get your thoughts on that. Yeah.
We'll get there. So that's the first game. You're taking Giants to win and obviously cover. I'm taking Cowboys to win and cover. Washington, 4-point favorites at home against the Falcons. That's a noon kickoff on Sunday. Your thoughts?
That's a tough one. I think it's going to be a coin flip. The Falcons have not been good, but I don't think this is like necessarily easy win for the Commanders. I think I'll say they win, but they don't cover. It's like a 3-point game, really close game. Comes down to a final field goal.
I'm going to copy. I'm going to copy that exactly. Like I said, I think Taylor Heineke's tempting things, not getting the right colors of Jordans after you know what I mean? If this is going to be your thing, even if you don't, maybe he's not like a Navy guy, you know what I mean? But like, you got to do it. You got to do it the right way. You can't just like pick and choose the way you can't like be like, oh, well, they were the Oilers. Like, no, you can't do it that way. So, those are just my thoughts. But I hate, we kind of do this a lot, but okay, Commanders, like you're saying, Giants, you want to prove you're different, at least go cover the spread. Commanders, you want us to take us seriously? Take you seriously? You want us to really think you can take one of these wild card spots? Go out, keep doing it. Like add on. Don't just like pull off the surprising things. Like be the favorite, win at home, go ahead. So let's do that. just for the purposes, this is before then, but we think the Vikings win and cover because that game's important in this division.
I guess, yeah.
They're 3-point favorites. So we both take them. And I mentioned this. My lock of the week on the SB Nation NFL show will be the Green Bay Packers as 7-point underdogs coming off that mini bye themselves. They are actually coming off 2 home games in a row, so they have not traveled in a long time. They have not looked good outside of the win against the Cowboys. But this Eagles team looked really bad against a team that is somehow worse than the Packers. My thoughts on the black helmets. I like debuting them at night. If you're going to do this, if you're going to wear like a special thing, you cannot do it at like noon or whatever. Like the Panthers did it right with their Thursday. Like it's got to be prime time. It's got to be a big deal. This is not just primetime game. It's the Sunday after Thanksgiving. Like a lot of people are going to be kind of sitting in watching it. So well done. I do think that clashes with the Packers colors. That's not the Eagles' fault. But so not the best like matchup, but well done from the Philly equipment staff. I will take Green Bay to cover and to win.
Wow. What's the final score?
29-26.
Okay. Packers have won 4 games this year. They're 4-7. They beat the Bears early on, who Aaron Rodgers famously owns, in addition to the Cowboys, week 2. Score of 27-10. Good win. Everyone's like, okay, they're bouncing back from that Vikings game. Obviously, Justin Fields is terrible. Then they beat the Bucs in week 3 by a final score of 14-12. Really bad vibes game. Both teams in kind of, disgruntled old quarterbacks. Then, third straight win, they beat the Patriots, who are using the combination of Brian Hoyer and Bailey Zappi making his NFL debut as a day 3 pick in week 4, and they won by 3 points in overtime. That was at home. Then they beat the Cowboys, as we know, despite trailing by 14 points entering the fourth quarter. So those are the Packers' wins this year. Not the most impressive resume. They have lost 6 of their last 7. Those include games to the Giants, the Jets, the Commanders, the Bills, the Lions, and the Tennessee Titans.
And 5 of those were in a row, right? 5 loss. They had a 5-loss.
So. Yeah,
5-game losing streak that Dallas helped snap, right?
Packers are just 1-4 on the road, and that the only win was the 2-point win, a game where they scored 14 points to beat the Bucs. So I don't know. Maybe the Eagles don't cover, but I am going to take them to cover, and at the very least, I'm going to take them to win this game because I think that they have played a little bit uncharacteristically lately, and I think they're going to bounce back at home.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't Jalen Hurts emerge against the Packers? That wasn't his first start, right? That was like Carson was
Carson
pulled.
got benched.
Yeah. Right, yeah. It was but it was at Lambeau. Is that correct?
It was a game at Lambeau that things had gone so bad that season that it's like, oh man, this Eagles team's going to get smoked. And then sure enough, they were looking terrible. They almost snuck back into the game. Not quite, but there was oh, is this going to be an upset? And it was not, but they made it a little interesting there with Hurts.
They got you to sit up on the couch type thing.
And it wasn't even all Hurts. Jalen Reagor had his only punt return touchdown of his career in that game.
Okay. My final question. So you were at a 2 last week. You were at a 4 now as far as panic level on the Eagles. What if the Cowboys win on Thursday and look like it doesn't have to be 40-3, but look like a very established, confident overall team, and the Eagles lose? However that happens, what will the scale be? And I understand that the scale would be impacted by the quality of loss, but just generally speaking, what would it be Sunday night, Monday morning?
Probably like a 7.5, 8, 7, depending exactly how it looks.
Right.
But yeah, it would be something along those lines. I mean, it doubled this week from 2 to 4. It might double again.
Wow. Well, I like that math.
Well, it's not going to happen though.
Brandon, let's get out of here. As we do, pick 3 of anything you want.
3 of anything I want. I'm going to take.
You have to tell us why you're taking the thing that you are taking.
Jeez, adding 10 more minutes to the episode. Why don't you? I'm going to take.
There's people traveling. I'm trying to help. Maybe somebody's 10 minutes from their
3
destination.
things I'm thankful for. Number 1.
Okay, super cliche. Okay.
The NFC East Mixtape listeners. Number 1.
The mixologists.
Not in any particular order, by the way. Number 2, my parents.
I had you guys number 1. He knocked you down. Interesting.
Well, yeah, you're below my parents. Sorry. And then my good friends, just like you, RJ.
Good answers. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving. Many gobbles to you all, and to all, a many gobbles.